Hello, you guys. We have Kimberly Romano on the show today, and I'm really excited to talk to Kimberly about her story, how she got into photography, but also we're going to be talking about her health journey and how that has shifted a lot of things in her life. And I've been following you, Kimberly, like for a really long time. Do you go by Kimberly or Kim now?
Either is fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
whatever comes
So
out.
the reason, like, we know each other because we actually took a brand photography, I think, course with Angie McPherson,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how I know about you. And I just follow along with whoever's been in that circle as well, just seeing what they're up to. And you caught my eye about like the health journey that you've been on because you were really hustling hard, going really hard as a photographer, working a lot, and you are based in Florida.
hmm
I'm not sure exactly where
The
again, but
Tampa
we
Bay
can.
area in Clearwater.
Okay, Tampa Bay. And yeah, I've just been following your journey. So I wanted to bring you on the show to talk about that today and how your life has completely changed from like just a couple years ago, from what I've seen, right? So,
Mhm.
and also I can kind of relate to parts of your story, which I want to just mention is like I saw that you had gone through this health journey about like how you discovered like an issue going on in your life. And I want you to tell this story, but basically I could relate a lot to it.
Mhm.
But let's get into that part. So basically, why don't you introduce everyone to like who you are, but let's get into how you kind of shifted your life because of a health, I don't know, crisis or thing that came up in your life and how it changed your, basically rocked your world, I guess.
It
Yeah.
definitely rocked my world. I call it a health debacle, is how I label it
Okay.
actually, because I feel like that's exactly what it was. So, hi, I'm Kimberly Romano. I am a brand alignment coach and human design reader and energy centered brand photographer for women entrepreneurs that are looking to stand out online. And I'm a wife of almost 24 years now. I have one son that is my whole entire world, and he starts high school
Oh my
in
God.
the fall. And I'm like, wait a second, what happened here? So I'm also a fur mama. I have three rescue pups that run around my house and bring me a lot of joy. And yeah, I've recently gone through this massive health crisis, health debacle that, as I love how you put it, how it totally rocked my world, because that's exactly what it did. It totally shifted everything upside down. And I'm not now coming to the other side of it. And I'm in a place now that I never really thought that I would ever be, especially when I pivoted from wedding photography into branding photography.
Yeah, I saw that like you because before you were doing well, yeah, you went from weddings, but you were doing the branding, but it was for real estate agents, right? That you
Yeah,
had focused mainly on that.
yeah,
And I saw you really working a lot.
a lot, a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, yeah, the hustle was real. So when I switched over from wedding photography to branding photography, it was in 2019. And it was a situation where my son was playing baseball, and it was the spring of 2019. And he saw me getting ready for yet another wedding on a Saturday where he had games. And he was like, "Oh, you're not going to be at my game again today." And it was like, "Okay, that's it." Like, and we're done. I had been done with weddings for a long time. I specialized in South Asian weddings for 10 years. And they're fun, they're extravagant, they're vibrant, they're a whole nother world where you literally don't market yourself because everything is word of mouth. I literally never had to really market myself. I mean, I had to continuously put myself out there, but the marketing realm was completely different. So I was actually out of the marketing space for 10 years when I decided to make this pivot into the marketing world, into brand photography. So when I made this pivot, I knew I had a lot to learn about marketing because what I knew was well over 10 years old. And with how quickly marketing tactics and strategies shift, I knew that what I was doing 10 years ago was not going to work for me. So I dove in really, really deep over that summer. And by the fall of 2019 is when I officially launched my personal branding photography side of my business. And I really thought that I would have to continue taking on weddings for at least 2 to 3 years while I was building this other side of my business before I could fully replace the income that I was making for weddings. And I was wrong. I was able to stop taking on weddings, I think 8 months after I opened the branding side of my business. It took off really quickly. And then a lot of that I know has to do with the fact that we went right into COVID. So it became essential for people to have marketing photos and videos to be able to continue moving forward with their business. And so all of a sudden, a genre of photography that wasn't very well known or popularized or even realized by a lot of entrepreneurs that the service was out there, or maybe even valued by entrepreneurs, like, oh, I can take photos on my cell phone and it's just fine. I don't need to spend hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars on brand photography, all of a sudden became essential to their business survival. So I know that that played a large role in how quickly my business grew, but it wasn't the only component, right? Synchronicity is a beautiful thing, but you also have to show up, right? We can't just wait for timing to happen. We have to take action as well. So that's what I wanted to do, because I wanted to stop working on the weekends. That was vitally important for me to be able to be there for my one and only son. Like, once he was grown up, that was it. There was no younger brothers or sister around for me to kind of relive those younger years. Like, this was going to be it for me. So it was vital for me to, as quickly as possible, make the transition. And so I really worked hard on not only curating the client experience, but actually helping my clients understand what to do with their images once they received it. That was a big need that I saw when I first started working with entrepreneurs, is that they were all gung-ho on going and getting the branding photos done. They were open to listening to all of my suggestions and what to do and why we were creating these types of images, how they would use them in social media. But then I noticed that once they got the images, they weren't really doing anything with them. And at first I took it kind of personally. I was like, did you like lie to me? Did you say that you liked these images, but the reality is that you don't? And then in having conversations with them, I began to realize that no, that of course that's not the case at all. They love their images, but either they just simply didn't know how to market with them, or two, they had this energetic block about putting themselves out online. They felt too vulnerable. They were scared of what people were going to say or anything of the sort. So that's when I started to bring in energetic work into my sessions, because what I realized early on is that, specifically with brand photography, with really any type of photography, it is an energetic signature of the energy that you are in the moment that that shutter button is clicked. So it doesn't matter what energy you're in when you go to post the photo. That affects your captions, but that doesn't affect the actual photo itself and the energy that comes off of that. And when you're using these images for marketing, right? Whether you think the image is really pretty or not, it's technically sound, or what, has the best filter on it or great editing or anything of the sort, none of that really matters, because what people pick up on the most with brand photography is the energy that's coming off of the person that is in the actual photo. So my clients would show up and they would be really nervous or anxious. They would feel self-conscious. They constantly wanted to check the back of the camera and say, oh, I don't like this. I don't like that. Can we redo this? Can you fix that? Can you fix this? And I was like, wait a second. I was like, this is not what we want to capture right now. So I was able to easily shift their energy into more confidence, right? And this wasn't just through talking them up, but, oh, you look beautiful. Like I tried that, like I honestly tried that. And I just realized that that was so surface level, and it wasn't getting down to the deep root belief that they had about themselves. And that's what I actually needed to dig up and help change their perspective on it, right? And so I would have this way of, like, within just like 10, 15 minutes, be able to shift their perspective on a belief that they have, like just literally give them another point of view. Like, well, have you thought about it this way? Or have you thought about it that way? And they'd be so caught up in their own definition of what that emotion felt inside their body that it was like a cage was wrapped around them. And I literally just unlocked the cage of possibility of what they could step into. And that's kind of what I became known for in my area, is a photographer that offers more than just pretty photos. And so that was my unique value proposition. That is what I pitched. It's why I was able to charge as much as I was able to charge, because I am one of the most expensive people in my area. And my clients would even come back to me and say, I had this conversation with my friend, my colleague, who is so interested, wants to work with you, but can't for the life of them wrap their head around why I'm paying so much to work with you. And then they would dive deep. So, like, literally, my own clients became my advocates for my high pricing. So that just goes to show the value of your unique value proposition, of how impactful we can be as brand photographers working with other entrepreneurs, right? And to help us see our own value, which is really what is going to help grow our business, when we can really lean into our own selves and kind of just remove the external of what is expected of us, what other people think of us, of, hey, knowing your own worth and not looking at what business is coming in and what reviews that we're even getting or how our reputation is being talked about as the definition of our value, right? If we let that take over, then we're not going to flourish. We're not going to go and step into our absolutely full potential. So this became like my foundation of my business and why I started to thrive. But as you pointed out earlier, you saw me working my arse off. Like, the
Yeah.
hustle became real because I started to lose touch with that a little bit. I started to get really caught up in the success that I was experiencing. And what ended up happening was I ended up attracting clients that weren't aligned for me. And so this is where the real hustle started to begin, and the downfall in my health really started to take place. And so, long story short, trying to keep a long story really short for you guys, what ended up happening is I started to have resentment in my business. I started to really feel that burnout creeping up. And that's kind of the thing about burnout, is that it just like hits you all of a sudden. You don't really see it coming. You don't see it slowly start to build. It's not like a switch that just turns on where everything is great and then all of a sudden you're burned out. It slowly starts to creep into your life and your business. And then before you know it, you're exhausted. Like, it got to a point where I wasn't excited about going to photo shoots. I was actually dreading going to some photo shoots
Mm.
depending on the client. And it's just like, that's when it hit me. I'm like, wait a second, something is not right. I have lost that zest for my business, that excitement. It doesn't light me up the same way. With some clients, it did, absolutely, because they were those aligned clients that really truly valued what I had to offer. And the clients that I was dreading were the clients who were like, I just want to have pretty pictures and that's what you do. And they'd be like, I want the same result that I'm seeing with all of your other clients online, these really vibrant photos where their personality is just jumping out of the frame. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm creating that environment for them, but that's their authenticity. You have to show up. It's a two-way street. I'm there to create the environment where you feel safe, to feel seen, to, step into that visibility when it comes to your marketing. But at the same time, like, you have to step forward. I can lead a horse to water. I can't force it to drink, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So it was in those moments that I started to realize that I was doing the same thing, right? That I had kind of fallen into that trap as well, as afraid of being visible, because when my clients were advocating for me and those people that they were talking to were still rejecting me, I took it personally. I took it as, oh, maybe this isn't what people really want. And I started to hide and dim my light inside of my business. And that's really, really where it started to crumble. And then, because I was so afraid of losing my business, I started just reaching and grabbing at anything that I could get because I had seen success. You know, I made $27,000 in sales my first year of brand photography, and I jumped up to 120,000 the second year, and I made over six figures again the third year, and the fourth year I was on track for my biggest year yet. And so I was just so afraid of losing it all. And that's exactly what happened because in the fall, in this really in the summer of 2023, my health just completely crumbled. And that's when
Yeah.
I went down and I was down for 3 months. I had to completely step away from my business due to my health, but not just physically did I have ailments. I also had a neurological condition that I still deal with today, even. So
Yeah.
it's not like I just couldn't do photo shoots, but I could still work on my business while I laid in bed. I couldn't even do that. So I completely lost everything that I had built up, including the momentum.
Yeah, that's tough. And like, because from my memory, you had basically had an infection in your tooth, right? Is that what happened? You went
Yeah.
to the dentist. This is where I think this is important to talk about this story because this kind of thing happened to me as well. Not like the burnout, but like I had a tooth extraction and it
Mm.
came out of nowhere. And I didn't realize that that kind of thing can affect you and your health so much.
Mhm.
But like yours was so severe that it really like you couldn't do anything. So what happened?
So I ended up having a several root canals actually that were incomplete, and I didn't know it when I had the work done. So what I mean by that is that there was a root in three out of four root canals that I had done where a root was missed. So it wasn't removed the way that it's supposed to be. And when that happens, an infection actually starts to form. And that was what was really building up over several years. And then the burnout was kind of like the tipping point for my health because my soul wasn't being fulfilled, right? So I wasn't energetic in any way, shape, or form. I wasn't focused in on taking care of my body because I was so focused on my business's health. I wasn't really prioritizing my personal health. I was trying to fight through that burnout, and that's what threw me flat on my face. And then at that point is when I realized that, okay, we need to find the deeper root cause of my health, no pun intended. So I'd been working with my doctors through that whole burnout period, right? And we just contributed my weight gain to stress from my business. I had gut health issues. I've had gut health issues my entire life. But stress can contribute to that. So we thought that all of my health related problems were really the root cause was actually stress. And then my doctor, who is an incredible doctor who merges both Western and Eastern medicine, got her hands on some new equipment, testing equipment. And this is where we found my actual root cause, which was a bacterial oral infection, is what it came up as on the test. And I was like, oh, please don't tell me that. I went through so much with my dentist. Like, the last thing that I want to have is more dental issues. So, this was also me having to face going back to the dentist, which I dread. And I know a lot of people really dread.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a new dentist and they found a small shadow on my x-rays above one of my root canals, and it was really small. And they said, hey, like, this is a problem, we can't really do any work and we don't do root canal work, so you need to go see a specialist, which I didn't know there was a thing. Had I known that, I would have gone to them to have all the root canals done in the first place and had them done properly. And so I'm thinking this is going to be no big deal because it's just a small, teeny, tiny shadow. And I've seen shadows before on X-rays from oral care, and they're usually like a no big deal thing. So I go to this specialist, and they do their CAT scan, they do all these crazy X-rays and everything like that, and they come in, and just the look on their face, I knew that it was going to be bad. And so he's like, I need you to come with me. And he took me over to the screening room and he pulled up all of the film. And it's where he showed me that I had three massive infections, all on the left side of my face.
Oh my
And one
gosh.
of them had grown so big that it actually went up into my bone and started to, yeah. So I had pinholes in my bone. So I was starting to get an actual bone infection from these root canals. So that tooth I ended up having to have extracted. The other two they were able to go ahead and correct. But at the end of the day, it was it was a massive infection that had completely weakened my immune system. And because my system was so weak, now the crazy thing about this, even with having such a weakened immune system, is that I didn't have sinus infections. I didn't have any colds over this entire period of time. Like, I was never sick in any way, shape, or form, which looking back at that kind of blows my mind that that was the case, considering what my body was going through and what my body was fighting off and going through COVID. Like, I never got COVID, so it was just like, to my mind, like, it was crazy that my body was strong enough, even going through this very difficult health period, to keep me as healthy as it actually did. And before any of this ever happened with finding the root canal problem, I actually went on a cruise for the first time with an old girlfriend of mine. And when I came back, I I had sea legs for a long time. And I kind of expected that because I've dealt with motion sickness before, but this went on for 9 weeks and it just wasn't going away. And so I started working with ear, nose, and throat doctor. I started working with my other doctors, like multiple doctors, and that's when we found a neurological condition called mal de debarquement, or MDDS. And what this is where the nerve between your brain and your inner ear shut down. So it doesn't know that you're stable. It thinks that you're on unstable ground. So it tries to counteract that and it makes you dizzy, but not like vertigo dizzy. It's like getting out of a wave pool, like, or getting off of a
Oh my
cruise
gosh.
boat, or like you feel like you're on a boat, like at all times. So even though you know that you're not moving, the whole inside of your body feels like you're going through a wave.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
And so while we were trying to find treatment for this and get this healed, my ear, nose, and throat doctor had found that there was a massive amount of inflammation in my brain around this nerve. And he's like, I know exactly what to do. All we have to do is get rid of this inflammation. It'll take the pressure off of the nerve. The nerve will be able to heal and it'll fire and it'll work properly and all this will go away. So he put me on a massive dose of steroids and something else. I can't even remember what it is, but it was huge doses of these steroids and other things to help with the inflammation. And that is when I ended up becoming hospitalized because my immune system was so weak. Adding all of those medications on such a high dose in such a short period of time, my entire body pretty much just completely shut down.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that's when I went down for 3 months.
Oh, that's so crazy. And this is why I wanted to talk about the root canal thing because I think that a lot of people, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people have root canals. And this happened to me like about 2 years ago. I had an infection that was pretty bad and I didn't even know it. I didn't
Hmm.
feel it. I had no clue,
Yeah.
but I had cracked like two of my root canals,
Oh, geez.
cracked them.
Ouch.
So the first one was extracted
Hmm.
before I even knew about the infection in this side. And I don't even know how we missed it. But mine was so bad as well. I had to actually be on antibiotics and had to go to an actual extreme specialist for root canals. Like beyond what a root canal specialist does. Like it was a surgeon that was like extremely specialized in one thing,
Hmm.
and it's because it was my last molar and it's so close to your the ear and all this like nerves
Hmm.
here. And they're like, before we do this, just know that your face may like lose sensitivity or you may lose muscle like movement. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
oh my
gosh.
gosh, like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what can happen if you remove a tooth.
Hmm.
But I had no choice. Like, the
Right.
tooth had cracked, it was dead already because, the root canal broke.
Hmm.
So basically, I had an infection. It was in the bone. So, like, for the had to do like major follow-ups just to do scans to make sure that it went away.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, I'm lucky that it did
Mm-hmm.
because it could have turned into sepsis, which gets into your bloodstream and can like make you extremely ill.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went through something similar as well. Luckily, I didn't get like to the point where I had like that I didn't have to be like, in a hospital, but I mean like I could sense certain things happening in my body. Like I had like swelling here in my side and I was like, well, I just had a thyroid check. The thyroid is fine. So I don't know why it's like so swollen here. And I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea. Like I had no clue.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, your body gives you clues. So like, I mean, you just have to start listening to what's going on in the body. And if you ignore it and you don't see what's happening, like it can get worse, right? Like then you have no clue and then that's how you get blindsided. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my body was obviously giving me some sort of indication that there was something going on. And so, I mean, I'm so grateful that mine didn't turn out to be something worse. But I like the dentist was like, "Well, this could be cancer," and I'm like, "What?"
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
that's not what I want to hear right now,
Right?
So those are like things that can really like just scare the Jesus out of you, and you're just like, "No, I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready to go through that." Like, I'm really hoping that this all like is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, since then, like I still feel like I have some like issues in the body. So I've actually been going really deep into like fixing like what's going on in my body. I've been working with somebody now who like tests your gut health, all these different things, and like just trying to get to like figuring out like what's happening in my body because I think when you're younger, you can like treat your body like, shit. And it's fine. You won't feel anything. But like as you get older, it's not going to be as strong, right? So you start to see things come up. And now with like two kids and stuff, I'm like, no, like I don't want to lose out on time with them either. Since
Yeah.
like your health is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, yeah, like earning money and stuff is like great, but if you don't have your health, like nothing else matters, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's why like I wanted to share your story about how you went through this because I think like there's probably a lot of people out there that could be living with something that's like silent living in the body and you have no idea, or maybe you've ignored it, like the
Mm-hmm.
root canal, the tooth extraction.
Right. Well, and it's
Yeah.
also kind of a situation where like, I feel like I'm a mix of both, right? Because my body was giving me signals. Like, I had this slow, constant weight gain that even my doctors couldn't understand because they're like, you're taking all the right vitamins. We did all the blood work and nothing was showing completely out of whack. And the things that were elevated or were too low, we were doing supplements to either bring the levels back down or to raise the levels back up to bring them into normal. So we were doing all the things. I was tending to it for years. And it even got to that point of my doctor saying, I've got no answers for you on why you just can't lose weight. I mean, my weight went from I averaged about like 135, 140, right? And I went up to almost 190 pounds. So we're not just talking like an extra 15, 20 pounds. I mean, it was close to 50 pounds that I had put on. And that is devastating as a human being to put on that kind of weight when you're exercising, when you're eating all of the quote unquote right things. I'm eating the salads. I would eat a salad. I remember this one time my husband took me out to dinner, and this was like kind of in the depth of me not being able to lose this weight and really trying to figure out my diet because I could eat almost anything and then my stomach would blow up. Like I would literally look like I was 6 months pregnant. It was crazy. And so I remember sitting down we were sitting at the bar and we went for lunch, and I was debating between a cheeseburger, which is my absolute favorite food in the entire world, or getting the grilled chicken salad with fruits and veggies and all of the good things in it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I really, really just want the cheeseburger, but I know that it's going to cause a bloating gut issue for me. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and get the salad. That's what I should be getting, right? And I feel like there's so many shoulds when it comes to our health of what we should be doing according to other people's health and their health stories, right? But just because you should be doing something because it's the healthy thing to do, like picking the salad over picking the cheeseburger, doesn't mean that it's the right thing for your body. So I picked the salad, I ate the salad, and literally by the time that we got to our vehicle in the parking lot when we were done, my stomach was bloated. And I remember just breaking down in tears to my husband saying, if I would have known that the salad was going to upset my stomach, I just would have gotten the dang cheeseburger so that at least I could have enjoyed, like really fully enjoyed what I wanted, knowing that I was going to get the same outcome. But at the same time, I said, I don't even know what to do anymore.
Yeah.
Like I've tried everything. We've done all the things. We've run all the tests. It wasn't until we did this. It's called an EDSA, and I don't really remember what it stands for, but it's like a DNA test where they use your hair strand and your saliva, and the whole purpose of this test is to find the root cause of your illness, of what's causing all of your symptoms, because my body was showing me that there was something really wrong all along. Because not only did I have the weight gain, but I also started having what all my doctors, including my dermatologist, had diagnosed me with as eczema, because that runs in my family. That's genetically inherited. So it looked like eczema, it acted like eczema, it responded to eczema treatment. So it must be eczema, right? And so I even like had to go out and completely replace my entire wardrobe to a particular fabric because synthetic fabrics would irritate my skin, which would just make the eczema that much worse. And so, your body is, like you said, it's going to give you signs that something is wrong,
Hmm.
and even when you're treating it and you're not getting any answers, I feel like this is where people give up hope, like I'm just stuck with this. I just have to learn to live with it. And the answer is no. No, it just means that you haven't found what's really causing the problem. And a lot of that were restricted by the service providers that we're seeing. So, as hard as it may be to do, whether that's physically, financially, availability wise, keep changing doctors if you need to. If you run into a doctor that says, I think it's this and the treatments are not working. You don't have to live with these conditions because this is your body telling you that there's something about your environment or your lifestyle or even your energy, because energy now plays into my neurological condition, right?
Hmm.
There's no inflammation in my body right now, like absolutely no inflammation in my body, yet I'm
I
still
can see.
experiencing the symptoms,
Yeah, but
right?
I can see that your physical form, like you've lost a lot of weight. Like I can see that, like, but even like I can see that there's a change in the energy of like just seeing you. Like I can
Hmm.
see that there's been a big change. So
Yeah.
you can see it. It's noticeable. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That's like a huge compliment because that's something
Oh.
I've been working really, really hard on, over the past 2 years. Because once I recovered from the root canal debacle, once the infections were cleared, and like, I even had like, this is almost kind of embarrassing to share, but it's a huge part of it because the infections were so bad, they actually were growing mold. So I had mold in my body, right? So it's like
Yeah,
once
that's
we got rid
dangerous.
of
Yeah.
all of these physical ailments, right? I still wasn't well. And I was like, what the hell? Like we've done all the things. The tests are coming back. The mold is gone. The infection is gone. The inflammation is gone. All my levels are back to normal. On paper, I should be ridiculously healthy. So why am I not fully there? Why am I not my full self? Why do I not have energy? How come everything is so foggy and I don't have clarity? It's difficult to focus. I just don't have any ambition like I typically do to go to work and do all the things that I'm doing. And that's when I realized that it was an energetic level inside of my body and I needed to look at that. And that's when I started diving deeper into that energetic work that I was actually introduced to way back when I first started the brand photography and I was able to shift that energy, that was kind of like the universe saying, "Hey, this is a thing, not just something that you can do for others, but that you need to do for yourself as well." So really the past year and a half of my health journey has been honed in and focused on the energetics of it because I see how much it plays into the outcome of my days and how it impacts my days, and physically how it impacts me as well because I'm tired during the day when I'm not, prioritizing my energy, which is really a lot about boundaries and self-worth and self-love. And I know people are probably hearing this and going, "Oh my gosh, here we go again." But it does. It makes a huge difference in the type of life that you actually get to experience. And once I opened myself up to that kind of vulnerability and stopped kind of blaming all the external things in my life for how I was experiencing life and kind of took responsibility, like, okay, well, what is going on with me? And opened up to that, then I was able to uproot a bunch of old wounds, old traumas, and I was able to clear them out and rewrite the story and be able to move forward in my life into this whole new chapter, this whole new quantum leap into this whole other purpose of what I'm supposed to be here for. Because I knew that I was here to be more than just a photographer, right? Just to show up and click pretty pictures and deliver them to clients for them to use to promote themselves in their business or remember their wedding day, or special family moments or anything of that sort. And this is where the energetic work comes in. And now I see how much it has impacted my health over the years. I probably would not have had as dramatic of an experience from the root canal work, right? Or from the neurological condition that was sparked by the cruise that I went on, but devastated my body as much as it did because of the root canal work. But had I kept all of that energetic flow inside of my body, then I probably would have been able to heal in a completely different way. So there's a balance between the physical healing and the emotional healing as well.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting that you talk about like healing yourself. I mean, in the end, it's up to you what you want to do for your life, right?
Hmm.
I think that a lot of people are afraid to face their demons or whatever it is that's,
Yeah.
somewhere deep inside that you haven't maybe dealt with.
Yeah.
And that can manifest into your health as well.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the times people are too afraid to like actually face those things.
Hmm.
And when you don't, it sits in the body and it can you know, either make you a little bit angry or bitter, or
Yeah.
not be able to express yourself, things like that. And so I think that's really important to think about is to like actually, try to take that time to, work through those things. Um, because even if it's something that you don't want to face right now, it'll feel so much better in the end, probably physically, and like it will show like in the body, right? It will show in the face and the eyes
Hmm.
and how you're feeling. And so, I mean, it's definitely like something that I encourage people to do. I mean, I've done it. I've gone to different like workshops and retreats on like kind of dealing with certain things that, you need to deal with. And it's like, I don't want to deal with it, but, it feels really good after you've kind of faced those things. Like a big weight is lifted off the body, you know?
Absolutely. And, I liked how you put we don't want to face our demons, because we think that our demons are here to punish us, right? For our sins or for our transgressions. And really our quote unquote demons are here to show us. They're here to show us to the light, show us what work needs to be done to heal, to be at our healthiest version of ourselves, both mind, body, and soul. And it's so much easier to blame external factors, right? To not take the responsibility for our own health on an emotional level. I don't know about you, but I'm a very emotional person. I grew up being very emotional, took things personally, cried a lot. And my whole life, people just told me, like, you're way too emotional. Stop being so emotional. Just suck it up, buttercup. Just wipe the tears and, rub some dirt in it and just move on with life. Stop taking things so personally. And that is the most unhelpful advice that you could ever give an emotional person. You know, what I needed was space to go through the emotions. So, because I wasn't given that space and being a redhead and the rebel that I am naturally, I was like, fine, you're telling me to suppress my emotions. No, I'm going to do everything from my emotions. And so I didn't know how to manage that kind of energy that was flowing through me. And that filtered down into every aspect of my life and decisions that I was making, experiences that I had, and how I reacted to those experiences, especially when people would come at me and treat me a certain way or say certain things to me. And that kind of emotional trauma is extremely unhealthy, and it does start to show up in the body. Your cortisol levels will start to raise. Your nervous system will become on, that constant fight or flight, where you never feel relaxed. And then even just the smallest of things that wouldn't affect you in a negative way bring on anxiety or maybe a bad reaction to whatever somebody said to you. You say something that you didn't really mean to say. You're doing that because you're in that fight or flight, right? It's just that straw that broke the camel's back, and finally you like let it all go. And that can dramatically affect your health. Whether you've had a bad root canal or bad dental work or not, or you have any of these other ailments, just that kind of stress on your body 24/7 can extremely affect your health and the longevity of your life, but also the vitality of your life and how you're experiencing life and what you're bringing into your life. Life is a mirror. So if there's somebody or an experience that you're not very happy with or that triggers you, that just goes to show that it has nothing to do with that experience or that person or even what they said, but it's something that needs healed inside of you. And that could be something that happened to you long ago when you were a child, or it could be something a little bit more recent. But it's just a kind of a reminder for us to pause and reflect and like, wait, like I need to give myself some attention here. What healing can I do to keep my body at its healthiest version, to keep it strong, to keep it fighting for me? Because that's what our bodies are here to do. They're here to keep us alive, to keep us healthy, to keep us strong. But if we don't tend to them, whether that's, by going and seeing our doctors on a regular basis and getting our dental cleanings, and, when we see these signs show up physically, as ailments on our bodies, and going and getting investigated. But if we're not taking care of that energetic health as well, then that's when it really starts to show up as the physical ailment. So if you're experiencing physical ailments, go see your doctor. Go find out, make sure that there's nothing medically seriously wrong that needs attention, because that's a thing. But if you're getting a whole bunch of, you're fine, this is all in your head, because that's a real thing that people deal with, and that's when they give up, then switch over to the energetic side. What part of me needs a little bit of love and healing? What have I been pushing down, spiritually inside of my body and avoiding facing because I'm afraid of what's going to happen on the other side? I'm afraid that I'm going to maybe lose a relationship or lose my job or lose something else in life. You know what I mean? Maybe even lose a little bit of a part of me. But what if that very thing that we need to face and fear is what's going to get us over to everything that we've been trying to bring into our life? So when it comes to the health, yes, the physical is extremely important, but so is the energetic side. It's a balance between the two of them. And that was the biggest thing that I learned going through this health debacle, because, we fixed the root canals. We extracted the tooth, we got rid of the infection, we cleared the inflammation, we did all the physical things, but I still wasn't healthy.
Yeah. So now, like, you've changed everything in your life, it
Yeah.
seems, right? So you changed the way you're approaching business, you've shifted things, you're not doing things the same way.
Mhm.
But what's changed?
So I still do brand photography. I think that I don't know that I would ever be able to completely drop photography out of my life. It is something that truly lights me up, especially when I'm working with the most aligned right people. It's a creative outlet for me, and it's a way for me to really serve others, especially women entrepreneurs that are trying to put themselves out there in an authentic way that can, help serve their people. And it's a domino effect, So I don't think that I'll ever be able to give up photography in any way, shape, or form, but I have leaned a lot more into that energetic work that I talked about, that I discovered through the photography, and really understanding how the hustle that I did in those first few years of my business, how dramatically that affected my health, but also how dramatically it affected just my quality of life. I just wasn't happy. I was working my butt off. I had all this success financially inside of my business. And I thought, isn't this what's supposed to make me happy? This is what I've wanted. When I did wedding photography, I struggled. I struggled to make ends meet. It was all I could do to get bookings. I was constantly chasing after people. And so when I switched over to the branding photography, everything just came so easily. And that's like what I had been trying to manifest in my business for so long, where I didn't have to go out and chase and work so hard for work to come in, for money to come in, and on a consistent basis. And so I thought, why am I not happy? I have everything that I thought that I wanted. Why am I still not happy? And so that's when I started turning to all of my mentors and everything like that. And I would implement everything that they would tell me to do, all the strategies, and I would see their same strategies work for them and work for other people that they were coaching. And it didn't work for me. And I just thought, like, why? Like, am I broken? Like, am I just really maybe not meant to be an entrepreneur? Like I don't understand what's going on here. So there was a lot of soul digging work that I had to do to uncover conditioning that I had as an entrepreneur, of these are the expectations of an entrepreneur, especially as a photographer in the industry. I tried tapping into coaching, and I would look to all my mentors and say, okay, well, this is what they're teaching and this is what people are looking for. So, I've seen so much success with my own version of what I learned from them. So I'm going to go teach my version of it. And I still wasn't like, I would get some clients, I would have some people sign up for my courses and my memberships and stuff like that. But like, there was just there was no consistency to it. And so I had to really look back and say, okay, where am I conditioned, and where am I not really truly showing up as myself? And where am I just hustling and I'm not leaning into flow a lot more? So I went through that whole process, and I shed all of the things that were conditioning of me. And I was able to bring forth an authentic offer that combines the energetic work with showing up authentically, all while reducing the hustle in your business by moving into cycles and moving with the natural rhythm of your own cycle, and doing things at your own pace in the way that you are designed to do things, so that you can go to work with ease, right? You don't feel this pressure to do all the things all of the time. So that's where my main focus is inside of my business, is helping entrepreneurs find this freedom from, and breaking free from the hustle culture that is entrepreneurship, you know what I mean? And take away that, hey, if you've been implementing all of these things that are being taught by the coaches and mentors that are out there, and you're still not seeing success, it doesn't mean that you're broken. You're not broken. The way that you were taught to do business is what's broken. And there's a whole other way of doing business as a woman specifically, especially when it comes to our natural rhythms and cycles. I mean, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but if you think about back in the day when businesses were being established, when entrepreneurship was becoming a thing, and people were going out and starting their own businesses, who was at the forefront of working and who was at home? Men were. So all the structures and foundations and systems of how to run a business, how to operate, how to work in, how to market, how to do all the things that an entrepreneur needs to do to have success, was built off of a way that the man is operates, right? Which is a 24-hour cycle, right? And that's great. That's awesome. That works for them. And they've seen a lot of success, and there's been so much good that has come out of that. But then as women started to enter the workforce, we looked to those men. And why wouldn't we? We had nobody else to look to. especially the successful ones, and we started following their formulas and their blueprints and their ways of doing things. And then when we weren't seeing the success and they were starting to get really, really exhausted, they were just told, you can't keep up. Right? Maybe you're not meant for this. You're not built for this. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. Whatever stories that they were told. And we started to adopt these stories as our truth instead of just finding another way. And a lot of women did find another way, and those women are the leaders that we have today. And they're the ones that are showing us that, maybe their way is the right way for you, but what they're really paving the way for is the fact that there is a different way of doing it. And the different way is your own unique way. But how do you figure out what that is? You have to work with somebody and surround yourself with people that have figured out what that way, how you discover what that way is. And that's what I do now. And I do that through human design. I do that through numerology for focus inside of your business. I do that with following your natural rhythm cycle, right? Which is a 28 to 30 day cycle. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, we need to do absolutely nothing when we're on our period. But you know what? There's going to be those days where you need to sit down and do absolutely nothing. And it's okay to do that rest. So many women, struggle with resting inside of their business or taking days off because they feel like they should be doing more because they're expected to be continuously on. And a lot of my work is around the fact that here's your permission slip. You don't have to be on every single day. You don't.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. I mean, when I'm teaching as well, like I try to make sure that people understand that what I give you is like information. You have to apply it in your own way because you may do things differently than me. But if you can find your own voice, your own way of doing things, to me, that's the way to learn, to be able to live your life. Because when you're following a structure and you're like, okay, I'm following exactly what you said, but it's still not working, but your way will not be like my way.
Right.
But you can have the information, you can understand how things work, but then find what works for you. And of course, like I think that's really important to think about cycles and like, when you have the highest energy and when you're the lowest, like planning your life around that. Because I mean, it's harder though for people who are working in an actual company because they have to be on. But of course, if you're an independent and you can plan your life a little bit, a little bit more around that, that's really like great for them, right? But if you work for a company, I think that's even harder because like they're not going to stop like asking you to do stuff.
Yeah.
If you have your cycle. I mean, I do talk to my husband about this because he works for a company, and like I do mention this. I'm like, the women in your office, I mean, I'm sure like they have to have moments where they're just not as productive, like in terms of like, writing or whatever they have to do. And, just know that like when you get your period, it's awful. Like you're tired, your brain's not working. You're just like really out of it. So, I try to like tell my husband this stuff and he's really considerate. Like he thinks about those things, but it's like, you can't really ask for a day off if you're working at a company unless it's like really bad. But I mean, if you work for yourself, then you can definitely like plan your life, your business around that. And I think that I do that a lot. I like if I'm gonna do like, let's say, or even like from like as like somebody who's gonna have photos taken, definitely don't have like your photos taken when you're about to get your period or the week before your period. Like you want to do it just after you've had your period or like a week after, right? Because then you're pretty good with your energy. You have a lot of like creativity, but then afterwards it's like it goes downhill, right? You're a little bit more like sluggish, you're tired, and then the period comes, you're bloating. I mean, so yeah, definitely like working around your cycles is like really important if you can do that.
Yeah, which is why I specifically work with women entrepreneurs because they do have that a little bit more freedom than if you work in a corporate office where you have a set schedule and things of that sort. That definitely becomes more difficult, and that's where you have to have real honest conversations with yourself and with your boss and setting expectations and things of that sort. There's some real hard conversations to be had there. But when it comes to being an entrepreneur, I feel as though they feel they are also in that same trap as corporate, because they have this expectation of their industry or of the people that they serve, the clients that they serve. You mentioned earlier that I worked with real estate agents. And I saw this so largely with real estate agents, how they would be so afraid to turn off. They would take calls and text messages and emails and do things, late into the night and on the weekends, and no days off for realtors and all the things, because, well, if you don't respond, then they're going to go to the next real estate agent. You might lose that opportunity. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't have any kind of boundaries and give yourself space to like actually rest and recoup and recharge your energy, then you're eventually going to drain your battery. Like, you have to recharge your battery. Like, eventually it's going to drain out and you're not going to have anything to give. And then that's where mistakes happen. And that can lead to more detriment in your business than if you just took an evening off, or if you had one day off a week. And I would work with entrepreneur, or specifically real estate agents that, one of them, like, they didn't work on Sundays. And that's almost unheard of for real estate agents to not work on a weekend, because their clients are working during the week. The only time they can go to meetings or open houses or do anything outside of their working hours is on a weekend. So they have to be available. But they're like, no, this is our sacred time. We give our clients, Monday through Saturday. And this is our time to recharge, and we completely disconnect from the real estate world, and we fill our souls and recharge our batteries. And then that way, come Monday, we're refreshed and we're ready to go. And they were extremely successful. So this whole mindset, specifically with real estate agents, is that they can't take a day off. Like, that's just a story that you're telling yourself. That is truly coming from a place of fear of missing out, fear of not having an opportunity to come forth to you because you're not making yourself available. But the question becomes, what are you making yourself available to? Stuff that's going to continue to drain you. If your clients have expectations that you have to show up for them whenever it is that they reach out to you, then they are ruling your life, not you. They are in charge of your life experience at the time that you are working with them, and not yourself. And that's no way to live either, because then you're at the beck and call of everybody else. And that's eventually going to come up to you, not only energetically, but physically too. Like you were talking about earlier, how, the body keeps a score. Eventually it's going to catch up to you and it's going to show up as an illness. I mean, how many times do people just get run down because they're go, go, go all the time? And next thing they know, they've got a cold and now they're down for 7 to 10 days or maybe even 2 weeks. Whereas if they would have just spread their time out a little bit more and had a little bit more rest in there, then they would have had stronger immune systems. They would have had more energy to fight off that virus that they came across and wouldn't have gotten sick and been completely down, and then pass it along to their family. And now they have to take time to take care of their family because now they're finally better, that sort of stuff. So it's a vicious cycle, and it's not easy thing to do, to slow down and break away from hustle. Like, it's
Yeah.
really not, and that's something that I had to learn, but it's essential too if we want to be successful inside of our business and also have our most healthiest bodies as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really key. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up, but I think like now you're working with, are you like working specifically with just entrepreneurs or photographers now? Is it just a mix?
It's a mix. So I work mostly just with entrepreneurs. I call it creative entrepreneurs and leaders. So if you're a photographer, I love to have you in my world. If you're not a photographer, I still love to have you in my world. Really, my ideal aligned client is somebody who is tired of burnout and is looking for the freedom that they signed up for inside of their business in the first place, right? Whatever that version of freedom looks like for them. So whether that's freedom to be able to do whatever they want whenever they want, or be able to take time off, or only work, 4-hour days and 5 days a week and have weekends off all the time, or to pick and choose who it is that they work with, whatever that freedom really looks like for them, the space that I create helps support that.
And you have this group called the Rising Entrepreneur, right?
Yes,
It's
the
like a
Rising
membership,
Entrepreneur
right?
membership. Yeah, so this is where we ditch the hustle culture and we provide focus for you, so that so that you have like one thing to work on in your month and not feel like you have to do all the things all the time.
I love that. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that is extremely personal, but it's so important that people hear these kind of stories because, I mean, if we don't hear that, we don't know. Like maybe somebody's looking for an answer for something and they didn't realize that maybe it's their tooth, like
Right.
me, you know? So, I mean, these are things that I think is like really important to highlight. Like it's nice to highlight like the good things, but also the health stuff is really important as well. So thanks for
Absolutely.
sharing your story
Thank you
and
for
being on
asking
the
me
show
on.
today.
Yeah.
And everyone, please go find Kimberly. I will put your info in the show notes so they can find you.
Awesome. Thank you.
But thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.